Well, I've been dying to ask you about Quentin since I've loved your. I'm sounding like a stupid fan, but like many people, I've loved your work with him. I mean, Wes is very, very particular in a way that I kind of liked and is unusual. And I wondered if is Quentin very fastidious about his script and text?
Very,
Yeah.
very,
Mm-hmm.
and so am I.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't dare to, but I wouldn't want to
Mm-hmm.
change a comma.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, that doesn't really flow so well. Can we? No. My job is to try to fathom what he entrusts me with,
Mm-hmm.
and not to bend it and pull it down to my level so it's comfortable.
Have you ever worked with directors who say change it, do different stuff?
Yeah. Or let's improvise.
Mm-hmm. Do you hate that?
It's the worst. I can't do it,
Mm-hmm.
nor would I want to.
Mm-hmm.
Now, of course, you can question which one's first.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to because you can't, or you can't because you don't want to. Or Wes doesn't improvise either, does he?
Not again. Not a comma.
Yeah, no. Why would you?
I remember one funny. We had a shot with there's a train sequence, and the train slows down, and it's a snowy landscape, and there are all these soldiers. And my line was, "Why have we stopped in a barley field? There's no way you could tell it was a barley field." So I said to Wes, "I know. Does it really make sense that he would say this?" Like he said, "No. I think it'll be fine. Just say." And of course, he uses the original line, and it doesn't. It's fine. In fact, it's very funny.
I remember, and I have to tell you, but it's so interesting, and I'm not lying.
Mm-hmm.
I remember noticing that you said barley field, even though there's snow in the background.
That's right.
But barley field evokes the whole Eastern European thing. It's
Okay.
barley. It's not wheat.
Okay.
And they eat broken barley.
Okay.
Poor people.
Okay.
I noticed that, and I noticed how wonderfully, precisely observed it is.
Okay. Yeah. Well.
Well, there you go.
There you go. Yeah.
Have you noticed that as a respected dramatic actor, you do something that people laugh about, all of a sudden they are irritated and say, "How come you do comedy?"
Well, there are these slightly worrying, simplistic divisions, because often comedy contains tragedy, and
And over the course of your time as an actor, did you notice that the pigeonholing has gotten more and more restricted?
Well, the Grand Budapest did feel like Wes shone a light for me in another place. And it was, when people I'm sure you get asked the question, what part would you like to play?
Yeah.
And I just say, I want to play the part I don't know, never heard of, that lands through the letterbox. And it's, and that was, in a way, what happened with the Grand Budapest Hotel.
It was some of the finest, subtlest, and most wonderful performances that I've seen you do. And it was one of the most wonderful things to watch, if I may say that.
Thank you.
Quickly.
I feel embarrassed, but thank you.
Yes,
very
but
much.
that's
Thank you.
partly of it.
But as you're talking about that, that's a world. The roots of Wes's world are in the Stefan Zweig stories. Does that connect with you at all? That
Well, you pointed out before. It's really one of the few principles or convictions I have, that the flip side is always more interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So you have something tragic like a country being ripped apart by fascists and people being victimized, yet it is told in a way that makes you chuckle and laugh. And so it's really through the humor and through the lightness and playfulness that this tragedy becomes digestible.
That's something that I admire in you. Is this you have this brilliant, very, very precise lightness.
In Vienna, you call that you pour lukewarm coffee onto each other. What we are doing right now.
Tell me about Big Eyes, because I know the story a tiny bit.
I had a wonderful discussion with Tim Burton, because the cultural perspective on these paintings that are in the center of the story are fascinatingly opposed. Because I grew up in Vienna, and as a kid, I was dragged to the museum. I didn't mind, but you know, I was just a regular kid. I was a little bored, and only later I got interested in. But that's how I grew up. And Tim grew up in Burbank, and what he saw as art was keen. And being a cultural snob, I looked down on it. Yet Tim explained to me that there is no reason to look down, and I fully got it. I fully understood that the interesting, the really interesting bit lies beyond it. And so I'm very curious to see whether that is actually part of the movie, because that's the most interesting.
Is she still alive?
She's still alive, yeah.
And the husband?
No, isn't. No, no. Have you played people who are still alive?
No, no, I haven't. Yes, no, I'm sorry. Charles Van Doren in Quizshow. He had no connection when we were making the film. I didn't get to meet him.
Well, because I think that's the only way. Would you agree? You can't sort of meet and interview and try to emulate.
I had one weird. When we did that film, John Turturro's character, Herbert Stemple, who John Turturro was playing, he was on set. He came, wanted to be part of it. Richard Goodwin, the lawyer, played by Rob Morrow, he was also around. And I was told, don't go near Charles Van Doren because there's legal problems, because some of his family life is in the movie and it's not technically in the public domain or whatever, it's private. So I was very curious, and then I drove with one of the producers. We drove up one very, very humid day to the place where he lives, not intending to do anything except to get a feel for this is the area where he. But we did get directions to the family house, and we heard that he lived on a little house on the property. And as we drove up there on the stoop, on the porch, there he was. And we were Charles Van Doren, there's Charles Van Doren. And we stopped the car, and I didn't want to say that I was attempting to play him, but I wanted to hear his voice. So I asked him directions.
Oh.
And he spoke. And I'd been watching all this footage of him. And I don't know what it gave me. It gave me anything. It gave me some sense of connection. There's a real person sitting quite vulnerable. Who's this person? Strange people in a car. Tell me about your audition for Quentin Tarantino.
Yeah, well, you see, I can't really deal with auditions very well. I don't know how you feel.
Hate them.
Now, I've never asked anyone to audition for me, but you have.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel a sense of responsibility?
No, don't change it. Just can I hear about your audition?
Well, it was just an audition.
Okay,
you know,
okay.
there's nothing much. You know,
Well,
it would be on the anecdotal level.
Okay.
You
That's
know,
all right.
yeah. He called for audition, but you know, it's kind of 6 years ago. He called for an audition, and of course everybody auditioned for him, and so did I. I mean, I did the whole thing with Quentin. I did the whole script, the whole part. He read all the other parts, and I read that one part. And we did it twice on 2 different days. And I was very impressed by that, because he really didn't trust he trusted his first impression and his instinct, as he always does, but he backs it up.